Welcome to the Academy Museum of Motion Pictures, the largest institution in the United States devoted to the arts, sciences, and artists of movie making. The Academy Museum of Motion Pictures acknowledges the Tongva people as the traditional caretakers of the water and land on which we program, curate, educate, convene, and discuss. We honor and respect Tongva ancestors and the Tongva community today, which continue to nurture this land and water through traditional practice, activism, art, and education. We acknowledge their continued work to safeguard cultural resources. My name is Bernardo Rondeau. I am the Senior Director of Film Programs here at the museum. Thank you for joining us in our beautiful David Geffen Theater for the International Feature Film Nominees panel presented as part of our Oscar Week programming. Before we begin the panel, public programming for 2023 Oscar Week is made possible by the Ruderman Family Foundation, which promotes authentic representation in the entertainment industry and full inclusion of people with disabilities throughout all sectors of society. Allow me to introduce our ASL interpreters for this panel, Richard Loya, and I'd like to ask Felix Villarreal and Paula Morales to also join on stage. Well, you're Paula. Yeah, Paula's already here. Now, please help me in welcoming to the stage Senior Vice President of Member Relations, Global Outreach and Awards Administration, Dilcia Barrera.
Hello, on behalf of the International Feature Film Administration team, including Jose Gallegos and Camille de los Santos, we would like to welcome you today. The International Feature Film category is proof of the love and admiration the Academy has for global cinema. The interest in filmmakers and their stories from around the world is high, and we're so happy to see this reflected, not only in the membership, but also in all aspects of this organization. This year, we received 92 submissions from selection committees representing 6 continents. For months, members from across the world participated in watching, discussing, and voting to form this category's shortlist, and then participated in selecting this category's nominees. We thank and acknowledge the hard work of the International Feature Film Executive Committee, who helps oversee the rules, regulations, and eligibility of this category, as well as the International Feature Film Voting Committee for their dedication to these films, these filmmakers, and this award. Tonight, it is our honor to have with us the International Feature Film Category Executive Committee co-chairs, Susanne Bier and Rajendra Roy. They're joining us as hosts and moderators. Susanne and Raj are wonderful partners, they're great leaders, and we're so grateful that we get to work with them year-round. So now, please help me welcome to the stage Susanne Bier and Rajendra Roy.
Good afternoon. Buenas noches.
Bonsoir. Guten Abend.
Guten Abend.
Tranona ma. Dobre wieczór. And those are the languages of the films we are honoring tonight, including Donkey, for those of you that don't speak there at the end. This is a celebration of international film. Welcome.
We truly feel the love tonight, not only for the International Film Feature category, but for the community of filmmakers and film lovers alike.
As Dilcia mentioned, the nominated international feature films were voted on by hundreds of Academy members from all over the globe this year. They collectively committed many hours of their time to view the 92 films that were submitted to represent their respective countries. Many of these dedicated members are here with us tonight, and we'd like to thank them for their commitment, passion, and hard work. Please give a round of applause to the executive and voting committee members of the International Feature Film category, and please stand if you're here with us. Thank you so much.
The international filmmakers who are here with us tonight help remind us why we fall in love with the movies. They introduced us to unique characters and transported us to different locations and themes. From the battlefronts of the First World War to the trials of the juntas, from an acrimonious split of a grade school friendship to the story of an abandoned girl, and finally, the journey of a donkey. Let's take a look at the 5 films nominated for Best International Feature Film.
¿Y de qué tema sí querés hablar?
De ninguno.
Hay una sola cosa que a mí no me queda clara.
Silvia, por favor, no me pongas de mal humor. Dale.
Yo no entiendo si vos estás así
Silvia,
porque tenés miedo
por favor.
de que la cosa no se haga.
Silvia.
Y porque tenés miedo de que la cosa sí se haga. Por momentos creo que lo que pasa es que estás cagado en las patas.
Por supuesto que estoy cagado en las patas. Por supuesto.
¿Y de qué tema sí querés hablar?
De ninguno.
¿De qué tenés miedo, Julio?
De todo, Silvia. De todo. De que todo esto es una trampa, que me estén usando para algún tipo de negociación. De que les pase algo a ustedes.
¿Y de no poder hacer nada? ¿Otra vez? Vas a poder, Julio. Vas a poder. Creo que lo que pasa es que estás cagado en las patas.
Por supuesto que estoy cagado en las patas. Por supuesto.
qué tenés miedo, Julio?
De todo, Silvia. De todo.
Fais pas de bruit. Ok, pardon. Fais pas de bruit. Oui, ok.
Estén usando para algún tipo de negociación. De que les pase algo a ustedes.
Attends, je vais regarder. Non, reste. Léo. Cache-toi. Cache-toi, cache-toi. Qu'est-ce qu'il y a? Non, mais qu'est-ce qu'il y a? Je ne fais pas de bruit. T'entends pas? T'entends pas les bruits de pas? Et des armures et tout, là, t'entends rien? Tu crois qu'il y en a combien? Là, il doit en avoir au moins 80. Je regarde ici, ils sont... Mais qu'est-ce qu'ils font? Je sais pas. Ils sont pas devant. C'est quoi? J'entends quelque chose. Ne fais pas trop de bruit. J'entends rien. Je pense qu'ils sont sur le toit, là. Et derrière, ils font un rond. Hey, arrête de faire ça pour nous entendre, t'es cocotte ou quoi? Alors, à 3, tu cours et tu pars en courant. Répétez. 3, 2, 1, go! Ils sont derrière, cours!
Ah, voilà toi.
Je veux dormir chez Rémi ce soir. Tu vas venir chez nous un jour? Peut-être.
Oh, mais c'est super gentil ça, on va venir d'un peu grand frère maintenant.
C'est bon.
Viens travailler un jour. fair happening. 3 hours in a car is no joke, like.
We've had a power of sunshine these past weeks. Police had us praying for rain this morning. So I'll be good to do. How's the farm?
Wel, ich. An galinsa. Sias amach, go dáir a mé splecha ceartart. An tam derig a bacchus tosa. Bhí tú sa fran, an biscotéis sin.
Tá fran bhrist.
Oh, cad a hála go na char.
Dus o dodrif cé mar bhara agus hit ceanú na hí.
Tarsteach, nanaf.
And now, please welcome our 5 nominees.
From Ireland, Colm, Bairéad, director of The Quiet Girl.
From Poland, Jerzy Skolimowski, director of EO.
From Belgium, Lukas Dhont, director of Close.
From Argentina, Santiago Mitre, director of Argentina 1985.
And from Germany, Edward Berger, director of All Quiet on the Western Front.
Welcome, gentlemen. And I am slightly anxious about just saying gentlemen. But welcome, gentlemen, and congratulations to you and to your countries. You've been sharing your remarkable films with audiences all over the world. And I'm sure you're a little bit tired of speaking about your own movies. So now, as part of our new tradition, we would love for each of you to speak a little bit about each other's films. Colm, since you are representing Ireland at the Oscars for the first time in this category, perhaps you could start. Perhaps you could start and share some thoughts about EO.
Thank you. I just watched EO yesterday, actually, so it's quite fresh in my mind, and I was blown away by it. I mean, what really struck me about it was, I mean, I thought our film was going to be the most non-verbal, But I guess, yeah, donkey's always going to beat you on that front. But what I loved about it was, like, Jerzy's obviously a legendary filmmaker and, has a long and very distinguished career. And yet you watch EO and there's such a beautiful curiosity to the filmmaking and an energy to it and a vitality to it that's really inspiring to me. And I loved how EO, in a sense, like the EO is the donkey at the center of the piece, and EO, in a sense, is almost like a mirror for us as the audience, and a mirror of us and all of our failings, and at times the sort of the better angels of our nature as well. But I just thought it was an astonishing piece of work, and there was such an audacity to the, like, formally, such an audacity to what Jerzy had created, and yeah, I'd urge you all to watch it.
Thank you, Colm. Edward, let's move to this side of the line. Perhaps you could share some thoughts on Close.
Yes. Lukas, I want to send you a little love letter about your film. I saw it a few months ago, and I thought it was the most beautiful film in its confidence, in its precision, in its silence, in its observation, and its acting. I mean, I've never seen any children or young men act as beautifully as the two boys that you found, and you can tell a wonderful story about where you found them. And later, or I can tell it for you, if you got tired of it. And it has your camera has a tenderness in the way you watch your protagonists and in the way you follow them, without being obtrusive, just observant, and just letting them be in front of the camera, an amazing confidence. And I think, like, having watched all of your films, there's a wonderful development and a wonderful language that you have developed that is very you, I think, that no one else really has. And the story is so simple, but yet so archaic or biblical, that it has a profound impact when you watch it. And you as a viewer, you move into your. What I love about it, also, I move into a sense of time that is very your film. It's outside of reality. It's like basically you take me into another space, and I live in that space for 2 hours, and I watch these two boys, and suddenly I come back, and I'm back in reality, and I've been moved to another world for 2 hours because of the way you treat your subjects. And I remember one shot, which is. So, I mean, that just your visual. I mean, then be it ice hockey or be it the flower shop. Every location, every decision you make in terms of your directorial decisions, they're so clearly driven by story that it's just wonderful to see. And I remember one shot, for example, and how it translates to camera is when the two boys cycle home, and silently, or just I think they maybe say a few words, and you already feel the rift between them, and then slowly, the two paths take them apart, and one goes straight and the other sort of takes off. And it's all one shot. You follow these two, and already, okay, they are drifting apart. They're taking different paths in life, and they make these decisions. And all your filmmaking is driven by these type of decisions, where your locations, your costumes, your production design, your dialogue, it all is in service of, subtly taking your audience by the hand and leading, making them escape into a different world, and that's just wonderful to see.
Thank you so much.
Jerzy, would you share something about Argentina 1985?
Well, I guess I was chosen to speak about Argentina in 1985 because in my country, Poland, we had quite similar experience of living under the dictatorship, and we suffer not such big tragedies as the 30,000 missing people, but numbers are not really decisive in this case. I think the atmosphere of life under the dictatorship is such that it twisted the souls of people and making a huge damage to the, to this, the whole nation. So I watched the film with that knowledge of what we went through, and I must say that in a private conversation with the director, I asked him a couple of questions which were, and I was very surprised with the answers. He managed to shoot this big, huge story within 10 weeks, which is unbelievable. We shot our little donkey for I don't know how many, 7 or 8 weeks. So it's an achievement. It's unbelievable thing. And I also asked him about the editing time, and I wasn't surprised by the answer that it took over 6 months to edit this huge story. I guess there was a lot of material which the director had to leave on the editing room floor. And I know how painful process it is because I went through such experience a couple of times in my filmmaking career. But what's the most important is the fact that this film was executed with such a precision and such a attention to every detail. Every little part was acted in the best possible way. And the main part, it's really a huge Oscar contender, in my opinion. It's very, very well played part, which normally actors don't like to play because it's, it has quite many so-called empty moments, in a private life when he goes from one room to the other, when he talks to his wife and daughter and son. Those are not incredibly exciting moments, and the actors prefer the parts with the emotions which are up on the sleeve, not so much withdrawn. And this actor really played it sensationally well. What else I should say?
Thank
you very
Jerzy.
much.
Thank you, Jerzy. Santiago, tell us something about Edward's film, All Quiet on the Western Front.
I was. It was an amazing experience to watch the film and to discover the film for the first time. I knew very little about the novel. Now I know because we have been sharing so many panels all together. So I know kind of some of the secrets of Edward's.
We like secrets. We can share. We won't tell.
He will probably tell it better than me. But it was a very impressive experience to watch the film. I mean, not only because of all the technical achievements that the film has, which is beautifully shot with an amazing photography. The music is so original and it brings so much tension. The makeup, everything in the film is so good, which is something that me as a filmmaker, who I like the craft of the filmmaker, it's something that I can admire and I can. But also it's I mean I do political films and I'm very interested in politics. So to watch this story was the kind of story that what I feel compelled and interested, and I think it's such an important film in this period of the world where we are suffering so much tragedies. So I think that it's a relevant and a film about the present, beside being telling a story of which year was it? The story. It's
1918 it finishes.
Okay.
16 to 18.
Okay. And no, and also, I mean, there's one sequence what I thought it was brilliant, and it's in the beginning, how he follows the battlefield to the and then the clothes of this soldier that dies, and then goes to the new soldiers. Everything's there. The cruelty of the politics, the cruelty of the world, the insane of the violence, that and the naiveness or the ingenuity of the people who accept that as this sort of nationalistic, fascist or whatever ingenuity that some people have, and so that's why they embrace those causes. Then I mean, I was really interested. I was really, for me was, I love the actor is amazing, and he drives the film amazingly, and also I love this ¿cómo se dice contrapunto? I don't know. I need some. I cannot.
Contrast, maybe.
Yeah, the contrast between the politicians and the war, because then there you see I don't know if the real tragedy on the war, on that tension, which I thought it was brilliantly shown in the film. So thank you for this film, Edward.
Thank you. Thank you. And finally, Lukas, please tell us about The Quiet Girl.
The Quiet Girl. Well, I have to say that the last stop I made before coming here was the Dublin Film Festival. And so when I arrived in Ireland and I drove there and all these posters of The Quiet Girl surrounded me, I was a little bit scared to present close in front of an audience full of Irish people. I was like, oh my God, are they gonna be receptive to us? They were very warm, but what was very beautiful to feel is this sort of proudness that there was for this film, for this Irish jewel that you made with your team. I could feel that you moved just by feeling the atmosphere in this audience, that you moved so many Irish people and so many people outside of Ireland, of course. But that proudness that I felt really marked me. Yeah, I think it's something extraordinary. And when I think of your film, I immediately think of that image of the grass, hearing that name, and then slowly discovering that there's this young girl hiding there who wants to disappear, who wants so much not to be found, not to be seen. And I thought it was such a beautiful, extraordinary opening of this film. I, of course, feel incredibly connected to your piece for many reasons. Of course, we both have child actors, but also I think in many ways our films are about healing. I think you have this young character who has experienced tragedy early in life, and you have this couple of parents who have experienced it later. And those two meeting each other and through their connectedness, finding a way out of the bruising, I thought was extraordinary. Really. It gave me goosebumps when I was watching your film. Throughout, I thought there was a confidence to your filming. Your cinematographer, who I got a chance to meet, did extraordinary work. But everything in your film felt so tender and at the same time confronted something so dark. I think your film is about human nature, but it's also about how reconnecting to nature can help us find ourselves. I'm in awe of what you did with that film. And I will never forget that last moment when she's running towards him and that last embrace that just went through my whole body and my soul and my heart and will stay there forever. So thank you.
So the reason for doing this is exactly what happened, is that the love isn't just in the room and in the emotion, but it becomes verbal and articulate. We are a group of filmmakers. We are a group and we love each other's work. And that is so important, and that's why we are here. And that's why all of you guys are here. This particular category dedicated to films not in English language. We would like to ask all of you, how does culture tie to a language? And what does it do to facilitate the understanding of the complexity of the world? Because we are in a world right now where everything is so accessible in English, everything is so accessible in, particularly in English. And so to make movies in other languages, you immediately mirror a different culture. What does that mean to each of you? Who do you want to start, Raj?
Well, let's start on this end. I mean, I'm looking at you, Colm, because you are the first-time guy, and representing the Irish language for the first time at the Oscars is a huge accomplishment. But let's start with Edward.
I was hoping you would start with Colm, but I mean, for me, language was, in this case, very important. It's a famous novel, a German novel, written in that language by a German writer who then eventually came to Los Angeles. He fled Germany during the Second World War, and found refuge here. And there was obviously a movie made in America in English. And so for me, the only reason to make this film was to make it in German. If it had been in English, I would have said, like, why, there is one, and a very good one. But it's not, I mean, language is almost a superficial attribute in this case, because it's sort of, you can translate a script and make it in German or in English or in Irish or Spanish. It's more about the feeling that that language brings and the soul of the culture. And the culture is the history. Let's say, if we make it specific for this movie, the history of a German filmmaker, what he's inherited, or what she's inherited in my case, is very different from an American filmmaker who would make a war film. And in America, you can have a story of heroes, you can have a story of people who liberate, who fulfill a mission, are successful, and come home and are sort of celebrated and are honored, and they come home with a sense of pride because of your history. America was roped into the Second World War, both World Wars, liberated Europe from fascism, and that leaves a very different sort of trace in the DNA of the generations to come and the filmmakers, and that thus leaves a very different film. And I thought, in Germany, if we make a film about the war and about this novel, you cannot have a hero. You cannot have someone who survives in the end. You cannot have someone who fulfills a mission, or you cannot have the sense of pride. And any death in that movie must be a horrible life lost, you know, and cannot be sort of, let's say, an obstacle that you put aside in order to get to your goal. And so I thought that would be just an interesting addition in terms of the dialogue between movies, between an American film about war, between a German film about war, and any other country. So for me, that language was basically the core of the movie.
Well, it is the core of movies. It is so interesting because it is exactly, it can't be the same movie. Yeah. It is windows into the entire world.
Colm, you want to pick it up? I mean, you don't even necessarily have to speak about your own film in this context. All yours is a landmark, clearly, for Irish cinema. But yeah, just talk about what it's meant and how your thoughts on this.
Sure, yeah. I suppose it's important to state that like our film is an adaptation actually of an English language text. So it's based on a long short story called Foster, written by Claire Keegan. But the decision to move that story into an Irish language space, to me, always felt kind of appropriate because Foster itself is such a beautiful rendering of us as a people in terms of our emotional and psychological makeup, I feel. And, you know, in Ireland, the form of English that we speak is actually carries all of these sort of ghosts, in a sense, of the Irish language. So there's even a term for the English that we speak in Ireland, which is Hiberno-English, because Ireland was known as Hibernia by the Romans, so that was the Latin term for it. And Hiberno-English is a description of a form of English that carries all of these inflections and memories, in a sense, of this other language, this entirely different language, the most ancient language in Europe. So for me, it always felt quite appropriate that a story that's so much about us as a people, that I should tell that story in our own language, you know? And, you know, when I read Foster and I read the dialogue in Foster, I can see, as an Irish speaker, I can see the Irish language in the words that these people are saying to one another. So even Irish people themselves are, unbeknownst to themselves, are giving expression to this ancient mode of expression that we had. And it was also, you know, I'm an Irish speaker, and I was raised bilingually. So my born in Dublin and raised in Dublin. My mum spoke English in our house, and my dad always spoke Irish. My dad's never spoken English to me. So the Irish language has always been a huge part of my life. Although I had a sort of a tortured relationship with it when I was younger, because, you know, we were kind of like this different family in our housing estate. And at that age, you know, you want to fit in. You don't want to be the weird family that are, you know, that people kind of look at or whatever. And yet my dad would insist on, you know, coming out onto the street and like calling down the street in Irish and is, you know, shouting down like, come on in for dinner or whatever in Irish. And other kids would be kind of looking at you, kind of going, oh, like, is your dad in the IRA? Or so there was all kind of, which he wasn't. But my dad just was a linguist, really had a deep love of languages and believed in the preservation of the language. And I guess that's something that I came to realize, that, you know, even though I spent most of my adolescence speaking English back to him, I did come to realize that it was a beautiful gift to be given a second language and to be given our own language. And I guess he knew that all sons eventually become their fathers, because you know, myself and my wife, Cleone Nicruli, who's the producer of the film, we have 2 young boys, and I can't speak English to them. So, but yeah, it was, I guess, you know, there's a part of me that kind of has been thinking about like the silence in our film, and how in a way, in a rather neat way, it almost speaks to the way in which our own language was silenced for so long. And that our language is a little bit like the quiet girl in our film that's been downtrodden and forgotten in some ways. But that my hope is, and this is the hope that I have in my own children, and in a way in the girl in our film, that, you know, she is given a chance, in a sense, and she's seen for the first time, and she's given space. And they're all things that our language needs, and I'm hoping that in some way that our language, as Coet does in our film, that our language will sort of find its voice again. And I look to my own children as the future in that regard.
I wanted to follow on that.
May I have a comment on?
Absolutely. Yeah, I was going to point to you,
said?
especially about the silence part.
I understand the complex of your language situation, especially that the greatest book ever written was written in Dublin, but not in English, but in a very special language, which also must have a huge effect on your attitude to languages. And on the other note, I must say I had a much easier situation because all the donkeys around the world speak exactly the same language.
Lukas, language is much more in conflict, perhaps, or maybe not, in Belgium. I mean, the Flemish language and French, I mean, there are distinct cultures wrapped up in each of those. Maybe speak a little bit about how you address that in close, or just your thoughts in general on that.
Yeah, I was thinking about the question and then also thoughts that maybe for me, of course, it's specific, it's in French and Dutch, but I think in this film, it's so much about the language of the body, or the language of the heart, which is as universal as the one of the donkeys, I think. I think it transcends borders, in a way. I think we all go through life and we grow up and we feel these things that connect us, whether we live in America or in Belgium or in India. And I think that is what we've tried with this film, is to speak about that universal experience of growing up. I think when we write, we very much write choreographies. I think in the beginning, our scripts feel a little bit like dance performances more than they feel like movies. It's actually my co-writer who's in the theater right now. Raise your hand, Angelo. Yeah, who reminds me that people actually speak sometimes. And so then we add dialogue and then we add language. But in the beginning, there's really not much. And I like that. I like to treat teams through their physicality and to start really by putting the body central. And then next to that, the languages. Of course, in Belgium, we speak 3 languages, and we have decided to really let French and Flemish coexist. Our sides of the country, industry, are quite divided, and it's always been my sort of ambition to work with the 2 sides and to really unite them in this film. I think for a young generation, they are confronted with the fact that these languages coexist in such an organic way. And I kind of want these films to also be an example of that.
Language. It's something probably obvious, but that I truly believe that cinema it's the language, not the language itself. It's a universal language. I mean, I've been watching films all my life, and I probably was watching many more films from other places of the world than from Argentina when I started to watch cinema, because of this big tradition of Hollywood, and it's it's everywhere. So I was used to read subtitles, so that opened me the possibility to get through cinema to cinema all over the world. So that's one of the things that I like and I think they're important. What Edward said about the importance of doing that film in German. It's a thing that for me it's like unimaginable these days, like to go and tell a story in another language. The language defines the place probably. So it's well, I'm an Argentinian. I do films in Argentina, so it's not only the language, it's also the expressions and the precisions of the words. And in my specific case of my film, it was a film about lawyers. So lawyers choose their words. So it was very important for me on the way we built the script, and then we shoot it. But also in the way that we recreate the scenes on the trial, that we used the exact same words that were used in the public parts, like totally verbatim. So I don't know what else to say. Let's go on.
Well, I think what we are trying to address is none of those movies could have been made in English. They are very specific, not just because of the language, but because of the sense of culture, because of the story is centered around something undefined, which is articulated by language. And like, I, for example, have had a couple of my movies remade in English. And it has been quite interesting because it's not even a question about whether they're good or bad. There is an essential element which is just remarkably different and doesn't necessarily work in a different language. And that's why, which is why it is very interesting to hear what your thoughts are on this particular subject. Do we?
We still have a little time,
yeah.
And in that time, this is in a way, it's not an ending, but perhaps you five will not be on stage in this manner again, and we just wanted to provide an opportunity for you just to share a little bit about what it's been like to be in the world with your films, in some cases together, in some cases alone, with your teams. Anything from this past year cycle for some of you that stands out to you? Any memories, any particular moment?
And this is a brief round.
Yeah.
These are brief answers.
Yeah.
And, and we would also like, if any of the audience had a brief question, we would love to have just a second for it. Who starts?
Anybody who wants.
Yeah, and who starts? Colm.
I mean, there have been so many. It's just been the most incredible year, and the fact that I've shared every step of the way with my wife, who's the producer, has just been incredible. But I guess, you know, the day that we found out we were going to be here was incredible. Like, we kind of took a gamble, and we got like a whole load of people together in a cinema kind of like this, and we watched the announcement of the nominees. And I'll always remember the word, or the two letters, EO, because they were the fourth film that was called out, and then it was followed by The Quiet Girl, and madness ensued, and we had cameras there to capture it. But so the gamble kind of paid off. But that was just a beautiful sort of moment in that we got to share it all together as a crew and as a cast, and because we had filmed during COVID, we'd no rap party, we didn't have that sort of social moment together where we got to embrace one another and celebrate what we had just done. So to do so in that moment with all of those people was enormously special for us, and it's just something that we'll never forget.
Great. Jerzy?
From my experience of showing EO, the one which really gives me a personal hope that there was some deeper sense in making this film, not only like the usual work on the film. I made several of them, and only very few were really good. So, and by the way, the worst film which I made ever has also something to do with language, because I stupidly dare to try to adapt one of Polish books of the author. You may not be familiar with his name. His name is Gombrowicz, and he had written a book called Verdydurke, which doesn't mean anything. It's a nonsense word. And but the quality of the book is that he used the Polish language in a completely different way than it was used by the classic Polish literature. He was making fun of the language. He was making criticism of the Polish characters, which were speaking in a specific way. It was a very subtle caricature of the Polish society, obyczaje, customs, and language. And I tried to make this film, but I didn't make it in Polish. I decided to make it in English, which was the stupidest thing, you know. Especially that I had the international crew and cast, international cast. I had quite well-known American actor, couple of British actors, some French actresses. They all spoke English in a different way with the different accents. So it was a total disaster. The worst film I ever made, and I stopped making films after that. And I stopped because I thought I have to rethink, I have to find myself in a different state of mind to not repeat such an unreasonable decision. But the point is that we have to be very careful with language and choosing the language, not ever repeat my mistake. That's one thing which I wanted to tell. And then the other thing is that perhaps because of that experience, I try to avoid as much as possible of the dialogue. I managed to make one film after that bad one, where the main hero didn't say a single word. That film was called Essential Killing. The main actor was Vincent Gallo, and he never opened his mouth to say a word. And the problem with the dialogue generally is either it's bad, then it's obviously bad, or it's too good, which is also bad, because you feel the written words, you know, it brings you closer to the theater. So the less dialogue is better for the films. Eva tells me that I should finish because I'm okay, one more thing. You know what is my favorite line of your film? I had a liquid dinner.
That is incredibly special. We're getting close. They're going to play us off, but it is the Oscars. But let's give everyone.
Let's get brief comments.
Yeah. Okay, brief. I was going to say I'm going to cancel all the English language projects that I felt like doing now. Thank you for the advice. Well, the most beautiful thing for me has been filming this piece with 2 young boys, and then seeing them grow up into 2 young men who have mustaches now, and who talk about all these things. They're actually here with us in the theater. Can you stand up, boys? Gustav, and where's Eden?
Can we just really briefly, Santiago and Edgar? Yeah.
No, there's so many things that I could mention about the whole process on being shown this film. But I think one of the more interesting things that this experience gives you is like to be in and festivals in general or panels, to be able to share time with other filmmakers and to listen to them, the ideas, advices, to share experiences. I think that's one of the best things of being on this. On having the lack of going through these experiences.
The nicest thing I think about this journey was we had a crew from the Czech Republic, from Germany, actors from France, Austria, Germany, and we always came together every few weeks, be it in London or Paris or in New York or LA, and met each other, and it was always such a nice meeting, and we became such good friends. The movie really brought us together. It was always like a wonderful party, basically, when we met, and we stayed up to long hours, and now we're all here, and that's an incredible experience.
And you're still staying up to long hours.
The hours haven't ended. These are your 2023 Oscar nominees, Best International Feature.
Thank you very much.
So now we're doing a class photo, but everyone has to leave. Thank you all. Thank you all so much for being here.
Thank you.